order the City of Oconomowoc Common Council meeting for Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
It has, Your Honor.
If you'd all please rise. Captain Tim, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you and welcome everyone. We call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Here.
Alderman Maroney.
Here.
Alderman Douglas is absent. Alderman Rosick.
Here.
Alderman Altman-Cloth. Here. Alderman Ellis.
Here.
I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of minutes for February 18th, 2025.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'd like to make a quick comment due to the incident that happened here at City Hall. I'd like to turn it over to our City Administrator, Mark Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. Around 10 o'clock this morning, a package with what looked to have a bomb within it was opened by our City Hall staff. They immediately notified the police. They started to evacuate the building, as we have been trained to do. Both Police Chief Pfister and Western Lakes Fire District Chief Brad Bowen were in the building, and we were actually in a meeting upstairs here at that time. But as I mentioned, as our staff has been trained, they evacuated, they assembled in the parking lot in a predetermined area, and then we made sure that everybody was able to get out of the building at that time. At about 10:30, we directed them to go to our community center because at that time our police chief indicated that this could maybe take a while. Because when you evacuate, you don't stop and grab anything. So some of them were out there without their jackets. And so we sent them over to the community center. And then once we determined the expected time of arrival for the Milwaukee Bomb Squad, I then made the decision to let them know all just to go home. Because at that time, it looked like it would be mid to late afternoon would be the very soonest we would get back into the building. 12:30, the Milwaukee Bomb Squad was on site, entered the building. 1 o'clock, they had a package with had what resembled a bomb was removed from City Hall after it was determined that it contained no explosives. So although it was really built well to look like a bomb, it did not have any explosives associated with it. So that was a good thing. And then 1:30, we were allowed to come back into the building for those that were still here. I want to recognize our city staff for knowing what to do, knowing to say something when it didn't look right. They notified the police. They started to evacuate. They assembled as they were supposed to. They stayed calm throughout the entire incident. The job that both the police and the fire departments did outside commanding the scene was exemplary. It's amazing to watch everything that has to go on with something like this and what they think of that you wouldn't have. An incident debriefing will take place with our city staff tomorrow morning. We're setting up 2 groups because after you have an incident, this is one of the things where you sit down and you learn what you did right and you learn what you did wrong. So right now, this is an ongoing investigation. So at this time, that's all that we're going to be saying about it until they work through and get more details. So,
Thank you, Mark. And Chief and Captain, thank you and the whole squad and also Western Lakes and everybody and all the mutual aid. I saw squad cars from multiple Lake Country municipalities, so big thank you to them for keeping us safe. We're going to move on to our comments and suggestions from citizens. So I have 2 blue cards. I'll read your name. If you'd please come up to the podium. Please tell us your name and where you live, your street address and city. We'd like to try to limit to about 3 minutes. This is an opportunity for you to share any topic on any conversation with the council today. So first up is David Gilson.
Hi, I'm Dave Gilson. I live at 412 North Lake Road, right up on the Isthmus, and thanks for hearing me. I just want you to think about as we reconsider the Rockwell Partners project and or the pavilion bathroom structure, I want to remind everyone that we've got a 2050 plan, and I assume that a lot of time and effort and money probably went into developing that plan. I distinctly remember going over to what was new at the time, the community center, and seeing the whole plan as it was unfolding and was kind of getting sold to us citizens on its merits. And There are within that plan architectural guidelines, and it looks something like that, for the downtown area. And the Village Green in this particular plan is designated as one of the gateway corridors. I would say it's probably the gateway corridor, the way we use it as a kind of our main attraction for events at downtown. And that means it portrays the image of the center city of Oconomowoc, which should meet the higher standards and create continuity according to the plan. Furthermore, there should be an emphasis placed upon vistas to the lakes. All this is coming from the plan, so none of this is me inventing this. The downtown guidelines start with the importance of the distinct history of Oconomowoc and the Four Corners area, which is the Village Green area. And they go over the history of Oconomowoc being an elegant era, an opulent period, a summer resort destination. All these are descriptions used in the plan. And this is supposed to form the foundation for design concepts and continuity of design. Designs that enhance the historic character and identity of downtown. Designs should reflect the past casual elegance and complement the adjacent historic character of downtown. Now, I'm reminding us of this plan because it seems to me like in the past we have not been considering this plan when we've been planning in this particular area, in the Four Corners area. We initially had a project proposed by this same developer, and we allowed it to go something like 50 feet higher than it should have gone. And that's directly in opposition to the scale requirements that are written into this plan. We let it go right up to the lakefront, which is, again, it was an exception that we were making to the rules. So, and then we had this structure proposed for the pavilion, and there was basically nothing in that that sort of kept in keeping with the historical concepts. So I'm reminding us of the plan. I think we should at least try to stick to the plan. I realize not everybody, not everybody's going to like a plan that comes up or the style of it, but there is a plan in place. I think we should at least try to objectively stick to the plan. If the plans that someone comes forth don't meet with the 2050 plan, then it should be sent back for reevaluation and get it to conform. We shouldn't continue to make exceptions, I don't think, like this. Most of us are attracted to Oconomowoc because of its small-town historical charm. We don't want this to become too much bigger of a city, and we don't want it to get too modern. We kind of like the small charming effect. So the rendition of the building that I'm seeing proposed by Rockwell Partners, now that might change because I'm going to see probably pictures of it today, but they look to me like they're at least trying to conform with the design elements of the 2050 plan. I think their project that's up by the waterfall, up by our house, also complements its surroundings without attempting to mimic historical type structures. So I think they're doing a good job architecturally. I'm just suggesting that let's make sure that we don't make other exceptions like height rules. I don't think it should go higher again. Setback rules, it shouldn't go right up to the lake. There's reasons for those rules. Those are important things relative to scale as outlined in the 2050 plan. And I also don't think we should be giving them part of the park so that they can move the parking lot over. That green space came to Oconomowoc at extremely high cost, and it's valuable space that opens vistas to the lake. I don't think we should be giving it to a developer just so they can make their project work.
If you can wrap up, that would be great.
I'm almost done here. So in summary, I ask that we please keep future projects compliant with the 2050 plan.
Thank you very much for sharing your opinion. Next up,
Mayor, if you don't, what was the sheet he held up?
the sheet, that was the comprehensive plan.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
That's within the 2050 plan.
Caitlin Gaston.
Talking to everybody last week.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Gaston, and I'm going to speak about Bethany.
Where do you live and your address, please?
162 Morningside Orchard Drive in Oconomowoc.
Thank you.
And I am going to speak about Bethany's Women's Recovery Center. Tomorrow, I will celebrate 1 year and 8 months sober. And I learned that addiction is not a choice. But it truly could happen to anyone, and it happened to me. During my drinking, I got blessed by getting connected with Deb Adamus, and eventually what turned into Bethany's. And in my time and experience at Bethany's, I learned many different coping skills to help me begin my recovery. And I was able to find my purpose, which I really struggled with prior to going to Bethany's. And it helped me become part of a community for the first time, where I was able to really, again, find my purpose, come out of my shell and shine my light. And I didn't know if these were achievable in my life prior to coming to Bethany's. So Bethany's and all of the women that I met because of it there at that time and continuously with the relationships that I've built, they were able to help me find Caitlin, who I am, what I like, and now I'm able to help other women do the same thing in their life. Even today, I work at a school, and I learned that one of the children that I work with suffers from disabilities from when her mother was pregnant, drinking with her. And it just brought light to me of now I get to do something and help her and teach her. And that's because of Bethany's and the women that I met there and what I learned there, and specifically Deb Adamus. If it wasn't for her, I don't know if I would be standing in this room right now. So a big thank you to her and Bethany's, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing your story. Additional comments or questions for the council? Okay, we're going to move on. Alderman, we have 6A as a consent agenda item. Per Attorney Riffle's recommendation, we're going to put that on hold unless there's objection. With hearing no objection, we'll move on to committee reports. Consider act on resolution 25-R3262, authorizing amendments to the 2025 budget for the continuing appropriations. Ms. Sullivan Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we have our annual continuing appropriations budget amendment. This is for purchase orders and capital projects that were not completed in 2024, and we're asking that the budget authority moves to 2025. So in your packet, I've listed out the line items, the budget line items that we're looking to carry forward to 2025. And there's also a narrative attached that gives a brief description of each line item. With that, these are, like I said, capital projects. There is also, at the end, what we do every year is designate some fund balances for future capital projects like the community center, maintenance, money that we've collected for the K-9 fund, those kind of things, and they're listed on your memo as well. So if there's questions, I'm happy to
Any
answer them.
questions for Ms. Sullivan Murray? For the audience, they just went through all these in Finance Committee just before council tonight, so they have dug into this deep. Not hearing any comments or questions, I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved, Altman Cloth.
Second. Any other questions, comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Maroney.
Aye.
Alderman Rosick.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
On to new business. We're going to start with a presentation and an update from Bethany Recovery Center for group living use located at 1331 West Capitol Drive. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'll just introduce this item and then I'll hand it over to Deb and Jennifer from the Bethany Recovery Center. They received a conditional use permit to operate this group treatment facility on Capitol Drive. It opened in 2023. One of the conditions of that conditional use permit was that they were to come back about a year after and give an update. And they did come in 2023 and 2024, and you guys wanted a full years of data just to kind of to determine how much of a strain this is on our city resources, mainly our police and fire. In your packet, they provided an update on the police and fire calls and how much of need they are asking the city
for. And, I talked to the police and fire chiefs the last couple of months as we were building this up. And they said it's not been too much of a drain on them and their departments. In fact, they said that they would recommend that this be the last report, is their recommendation, and that they would only need to come forward if either the police or fire chief feels something changes and they need to bring forward questions to the Common Council. But I think at this point, we'll turn it over to Deb and Jennifer from the facility, and then if you have questions, I know I'm here, and as well as Chief is here as well from the police, and we can answer questions that you might have.
Thank you for coming back. We're looking forward to your report.
Thank you so much for having us, Mayor and council members. My name is Jenny Schmeichel, and I am the Executive Director for Bethany Christian Services of Wisconsin. And this is Debbie Adamus. She is the Director of Bethany Recovery Center. And I thought I'd start off by just doing a quick overview, a reminder of the services that we provide at Bethany Recovery Center. Deb was coming up in the elevator, and a gentleman asked why she was there, and she mentioned that we were from the Recovery Center, and he didn't know anything about us. And I think that's to be, I think, expected. We are in our 3.5-year mark of operation, and so we really want to be a household name. So I wanted to give you an idea of the services that we provide. So residential treatment, that is for individuals who cannot stay clean and sober. They can't manage their mental health issues by just attending outpatient counseling. Their issues may not be bad enough or severe enough to have to go to a hospital and be inpatient. So the Recovery Center offers over 30 hours of intensive treatment and recovery activities a week. You know, these women, that's their full-time job while they're there. So we are not a halfway house. We are not housing. We are a treatment facility. And we specifically treat substance use disorders, alcohol, methamphetamines, cocaine, you name it. And we treat women who have co-occurring mental health disorders. And so providing services for both of those issues in one place is necessary. Furthermore, we specialize in women who have additional issues, challenges, domestic violence. They typically are the moms. They are responsible for the kids. And therefore, if they're not doing well, their children aren't doing well and become damaged because of untreated illnesses. Pregnant women are a very special focus for us because, as you heard from Caitlin, a lot of things can happen while a woman is pregnant when they're out there using. It's not just the substances that they're ingesting, it's the entire lifestyle, which puts her and her child at risk. Just living in constant stress levels that are elevated impacts that fetus, impacts that baby. And, that creates another generation of people who need intensive services. So really, we focus on the family. Women tend to have the children, and we want to equip these women for the children they have, the children that they're going to have, so they can take care of themselves and so they can take care of their children. And hopefully one day stop this cycle. So I just wanted to give you just an update on really the difficult work that we do and the programs that we provide. All right, so we were asked here to talk specifically about our emergency calls. And I know that you received information in the packets. There was some comparison, I believe, with the police report that we are actually down in calls for the police. I wanted to specifically talk about the police calls when it comes to the 20, what the police call wanted person. So the 20 calls, so what happens is we have a contract with the Department of Corrections, and whenever one of those, on one of our floors, so some of the women are directly referred to us, and so they have additional requirements upon discharge. So if a woman leaves and they leave without completing the program, it's protocol for us to call for them to be taken into custody. So it's not like they are causing problems. It's not like there's a risk to anyone in the building or the neighborhood. It's just that is our protocol, and so we're following that. Okay, I wanted to be clear on that. So we got our fire alarm system fixed. You know, we were having some issues with all that technical stuff that comes with having a fire system and compressors and, yes. And what? Popcorn. Popcorn, yeah. So we've eliminated popcorn. No longer, they can't use microwave popcorn, but we did get our system fixed, and I believe that's made a world of difference. Yes, we get the nod. Yeah, the last thing we want is for the fire department to come to our facility when they don't need to. So another statistic I wanted to share with you is just a little bit about the women that we serve. I think that you saw that we served 164 residents for the year 2024. 11 of those women were pregnant while in treatment and gave birth to 6 babies while they were there. So, you know, originally we wanted the women to come in while they were pregnant and spend a lengthy amount of time there so we could, you know, provide that healthy pregnancy. But due to funding, that is not our reality. We are really restricted in terms of timeframes that the women can be with us because of funding issues, and most of them are funded through Medicaid. So we keep them as long as we can, and sometimes we can't keep them through the actual birth of their child. So that's why there's that discrepancy there. And something that has come up more often is that we tracked 45 of our women have been trafficked or have been involved in trafficking. So that's another element that women really have to deal with in addition to all the other things that I mentioned. And we have to take additional steps to make sure that they are placed in a safe environment upon discharge that's different from someone who hasn't been in that trafficking arena. And that, you know, obviously, human trafficking, yes. And that adds a complexity to their recovery and their using. So there's a lot of work that we need to do with them to feel good about them upon discharge. Okay.
I can open it up. Council members, do you have any questions? And thank you all for coming back. It looks like from all the positive shakes from Chief Pfister in the back that we're going in a good direction, and at least no more burned popcorn, right?
Yes.
Alderman Mulder?
Thanks for coming in again. It's always this, I guess, third or fourth time I've heard your story, and it's always, you are a little bit invisible to the community, but the good work that you do out there and the number of people you impact, even though they're not all from the city. I am wondering, how do your patients get referred to the facility?
Let her talk a little bit now.
Well, we have a contract on our second floor with the Department of Corrections. That's an 18-bed floor. So our funding comes through Department of Corrections there. On our general population floor, we have, that's a 12-bed floor. And anybody can come in, it's self-referrals, word of mouth, detox centers. Rogers over here sends folks to us. Pardon? County referrals. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Alderman Maroney?
I want to thank you guys for coming back and giving us an update. I think it's a very important work that you do as far as what you're giving these women. I guess my comment would be, what would you say the biggest challenge you have moving forward in the next year would be?
Funding,
Funding.
funding. We need money.
We do.
We do.
Our expenses since 2023, have increased 44%.
Wow.
And the contract that we have hasn't changed, so we've requested an increase from the department. Medicaid, we can't ask for any increases. We've received a number of really generous grants, but because of the additional services these women need, funding and I guess awareness, and then I think funding comes from that.
Right. Medicaid pays $222 a day, and our daily rate is $357 a day. So there's a real shortfall. So we've written some grants, and we've gotten some donors, but we're about $300,000 short a year. So we're really looking for different ways in which we can raise some money.
And the headquarters, Bethany Christian Services is nationwide, and so we're part of a larger organization, and they have been, so far, supporting us until we can become better established. In that term, we are building the plane as we're flying. This project was a huge undertaking, and we basically started it from scratch. So it's kind of like you know what you want to do, but then you don't know what you don't know. And so we've been making changes and adjustments, and so that has taken up a lot of our time because we want to provide that service.
Well, we wish you the best.
Thank you, thank you.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Thank you so much for the incredible work that you're doing. My oldest daughter and I have been involved in a couple different organizations that are dealing with trafficked women, one in Waukesha and one in Milwaukee. So thank you so much for doing that. I think people have no idea that right here in Wisconsin, it's a huge issue. It's a big issue and a huge issue. I'd be comfortable not having them have to come back in a year again. If we kind of look at some of their stats too, in 2022, they served 122 women, 2023, 139, this year, 2024, 164, and yet when you look at their calls, they're down each of those years. So the percentage has gone down while the number of people that they've served has gone up. So I'm comfortable not having you guys have to come back next year unless chief or captain think that that's something that we should do.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Karen just stole what I was going to say. I was going to say the same thing, but I did have one question, though. In regards to fundraising, if money that you guys raise, does that stay here in Oconomowoc, or does that go to the bigger, and then, no? So
Just
what
for
you
the-
raise?
Just for the treatment center, yeah.
Okay.
We have a ride for recovery once a year in September, and it's a big Harley ride. You guys might be aware because we come through.
I met you on the
town.
boardwalk one day. You were
Yes.
passing out.
Yes. little
Cards on it.
cards, Right.
Yeah.
Do that annually now, so.
Okay.
we have
Alderman
Harley
Rozak.
Riders,
Oh,
come
good.
on over.
Jenny and Debbie, thank you for coming in. I do think you guys provide a vital and critical service here in Oconomowoc. I agree. I think last year we said they didn't have to come back, was my recollection.
No, it was in the minutes. I looked them up from last year. We
Really?
did ask them to come back.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Well,
Because of the popcorn?
I think you're
yeah,
hearing that we're comfortable.
I think you just wanted more data. Someone,
it could have been. I seem to recall saying we could just look at the data and then ask questions if we have questions, which I'm certainly comfortable with doing. I still would like to see the data because, the numbers I'm looking at still, despite the services you perform, still jump out at me. 164 residents, but 83 calls. Now, some of them are overlap calls. There's a police officer showing up with an EMS call. But essentially, that's one call per 2 people, and probably that number is more like 1 call per 3 because of some of that overlap. But that's still a lot of calls that essentially the taxpayers of Oconomowoc are footing the bill for, the police and EMS. Out of the 20, and you guys highlighted the right numbers, out of the 20 wanted persons, were all 20 because somebody failed to complete a program, or were there other instances of people showing up because it's a domestic violence thing and calling the police? It's all for non-completion of the program, trying to leave early before the program.
right, and the fact that we need them transported by police. We've tried to bypass the Oconomowoc police.
If you
The
can,
microphone?
Well,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, thanks.
We've tried to bypass the Oconomowoc police, and because they end up going to Waukesha County, but I guess that isn't something that we can do.
So if somebody completes somebody doesn't complete a program, they try to leave early, you have to call the police on them, and then we have to transport and pay for the transport essentially.
We have to contact the probation officer because we're talking about the Department of Corrections floor.
Right.
And so if there's some rule violations that, you know, stealing or maybe making a verbal threat to another resident, you know, we take those things very seriously, and we contact the probation officer, who in turn puts a warrant out for their arrest, which then results with the police coming and taking
So
them
it's
into
either
custody.
program non-completion or some other
Or a rule.
nefarious act
Yeah.
inside of the facility, okay. What about the only other number I wanted to talk about briefly was the 22 EMS calls. That's a lot of calls for one facility. Are those overdoses or those?
No, we've never had, knock on wood, we've never had an overdose in our facility. Those are by and large, remember that the women that come to us are pretty sick.
Okay.
You know, they're physically very ill and often, and the women who are pregnant all have high-risk pregnancies.
Gotcha.
And so there might be they might be going into labor, there might be false labor, somebody's blood pressure is,
Spiked or something.
yeah, yeah. So it's all those types of things.
Good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good to hear that, you know, we're not putting our EMS folks into a situation where there's multiple overdoses or exposure to drugs. Yeah, I'm comfortable with y'all not coming back and doing this again. I still would like to see the stats yearly. I think that's incumbent upon us. This is a CUP, and if we think anything looks haywire or really bad, we need to address it and look into it further. So I appreciate you guys coming, but I'd still like to see the stats, but I see no reason for them to come back. So,
Any other comments from council? Alderman Spiegelberg.
Just as an FYI, the EMS calls last year were 32. They're down to 22. That's a third, even though their population of women is up. So I think that's
But still,
commendable.
yeah, that's fine,
Good
but it's still a lot of,
direction.
it's still a lot of calls for service to one building. That was my overall point.
But it seems like everything's trending down as far as stats.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you for all your support.
Next up is presentation of potential Rockwell Partners development.
Actually, you have oh, all right. Whole thing? No, that's just the one we did. Mind if I also share the letter that we. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for taking the time to hear us today. Before I begin, in case anyone...
Can you identify yourself
My
for the
name is,
record, please?
Attorney Joe Newgold. I represent Rockwell Partners, and with me today is Jeff Skirma and John Botcher, both representatives of Rockwell. Before we get into any questions that you've got, I'd like to address, there was a news article about a letter that we provided to the city, and that news article led with a headline that I don't think accurately conveyed my letter to the city. The headline said, property developers threaten city with litigation, and I don't think that was an appropriate headline for the situation, because I think a better headline would have been, property developers offer compromise to avoid litigation so that park plans can proceed. That was the intent of the letter that we provided to the city, and that's the message that we wanted to provide to the city. The page that I just asked you guys to take a look at is a Google satellite image of the area in question that was purchased by my clients. And you'll see on there's some black roofs, and those were the properties that were purchased by my clients. And if you look, you can see that there's parking around the back of.
We can go ahead and pop that up so everybody
Yeah,
can
that'd
see
be great.
it.
I think it's page
Yeah.
28 from the
Just turn it on.
the agenda.
Yeah, we have it on the agenda. We thought we could pop it up here.
Great.
Mark thought that way we want to make sure everybody's on the same page. No pun intended.
Thank you.
Is this the what
Yes,
you'd
that's
like?
it. You
Great.
got it. Thank you. And so if you look on there, you can see there's 3 buildings that were purchased by my clients, and then they don't own the building that's the furthest to the north. But you'll see around the back of their building, before it was demolished, there was some parking there. And there's a yellow car, a white car, and 2 black vehicles that are back there. And I think that if any of us owned a piece of land, and we had access to the front of that land, and then there was a public road that provided us access to the back of that land, and the government was going to take away that road, which is what would happen under the parks, the city's plans, we would have questions, because if you needed access to the back of your land, you would hire a lawyer and go, wait a minute, why are they taking away my access to the back of the land? And that's exactly what my clients have done in this case. And so our way of dealing with this isn't to say that we want to come in and we want to put a stop to the park plans. That is not what my client's goal is. Now, they have a right to protect their interests, and in fact, there's a law in Wisconsin that specifically governs what a city can do when they're taking away parking, and it specifically says that no discontinuance of an unpaved alley shall be ordered if a written objection to the proposed discontinuance is filed with the city, village, or town clerk by the owner of one parcel of land that abuts the portion of the alley to be discontinued. And that's exactly what the park proposal is it would take away an alley that provides access to parking in this case. And so my clients have, instead of coming forward and saying, let's march forward with litigation, let's use the law to stop things, they've instead hired an architect and then asked that architect to propose modifications to the plan. And if we could turn to the other page, if you could click over to the page that we originally had up, that would be helpful. Thank you. And under these modifications, oh, no, that's the same one.
I know.
Yes, thank you. Now, under these proposed modifications to your park plans, there would be a maintenance of parking that exists down what I would call lot 16 and 17 that are owned, that would be between the land that Rockwell owns and the park. And that just makes sense. I mean, you guys are putting in a park pavilion that's going to be an attraction. I'm not from Economowoc, but I came out here for Christmas. You guys have a lot going on. It's a busy time, and it makes sense that you would want to have parking in this area. There's a pavilion that you guys are planning on putting in, and it makes sense that you would want to have parking down that alley so that way there would be parking for the individuals that are going to be visiting the park or using the park pavilion. In addition, my clients have some additional requests because they are giving up something of value. Specifically in this case, there's an easement that the city wants to use. We believe that easement was not properly maintained, and as a result, we have a basis to get rid of that easement. But,
Sir,
yeah,
just to help you out, so the last time the council spoke about this project, we removed those alternates from the consideration in our construction bid.
yes,
So we, at this time, have no plans to build a boardwalk across
Okay.
your client's property.
Okay.
I'm just trying to help you out.
I
instead of
appreciate
have you-
that, thank you.
And you can also use the mouse up there kind of as a pointer.
Yep, sure, be glad to.
And while I have your attention, you talked about, the purpose of that alleyway to serve for parking behind the building.
Yep.
I'm not seeing parking behind the building on it. So
yes,
if you could discuss that.
Yes, so you'll notice that there's 2 green kind of cutouts here, if I can move the mouse to where those are. It's my understanding that under some of the considerations, and the entry into the interior parking would be through that area. Is that right? Yeah, so while we're not submitting specific design plans to the city at this time, what you would end up with, and I think that this is not in my letter, but I had a chance to talk to the architect that created this document earlier today, and he pointed out something that I think is really important. If the park plans proceeded as originally outlined, you would have no way of, I guess, turning into a lot here. And instead, if there was going to be parking on the Rockwell lots, you would need 2 curb cuts, according to the architect, on Main Street. Now, when I was here over Christmas, I noticed there's a lot of people that are walking around at that time. And what you would have is you would have people coming in, walking along this sidewalk here, along Main Street, and cars coming across the sidewalk at the exact same time to enter and exit parking inside of the building on Rockwell. And so that would create a naturally, that's something that architects and designers don't want. They don't want a situation where there is cars crossing pedestrian traffic on a sidewalk. It creates an unsafe area. So that's why, one reason why I think it would be in the city's interest, it would be in pedestrians' interest, and it's in my client's interest not to have a situation where you've got multiple curb cuts on Main Street, and instead you're better off with the existing alley as it exists, so that folks could turn in through those green little dots that are there. Did I address your question there?
No, actually you did not.
Okay.
Because when you were talking about the other drawing, and I'm not going to
Yep.
pull it back up.
Yep.
You were pointing out that there was a yellow car, a white car, and 2
Yes,
black cars
yes.
parked back here.
Yes.
And that you were trying to preserve the access to parking behind the building.
Yes.
And I asked where that parking is on this proposal.
Yes, and so to be clear, we don't have specific plans that we're putting before the city at this time for building behind that entire building. Now, the architect in this case wasn't creating plans. He was just simply noting that under this proposal, parking would be coming in to the building, not off of Main Street, but off of the side alley. And whether the parking comes in through here to parking in the back, whether it comes in through here, what's important is that the parking is not coming in. The cars are not coming in through here. Do I have that right? Yeah. So does that make sense?
You're getting there, but I'll let you keep going.
Okay, thank you. And if it doesn't, and I need to provide additional clarification, I'll do my best to.
It was specific in your earlier comments
Yes.
for parking in the rear, and
Yes.
there's nothing, all you had to say is, there's nothing shown on here.
Yes, you're right, there is nothing shown on here, but what would be taken away through the park plans is the ability to access a parking area within the building where you're not coming in straight off of Main Street. And what is needed is a significant setback so that way my clients can allow for and access to the side of their property without having to come straight off of Main Street. And that requires enough of a setback to allow vehicles to come in and out and turn, as exists currently. So
based on that, would
Yep.
it be right to say that that access area only needs to be as far back as where the entrance door is into the building?
I don't want to get into where the entrance of the building would be, because again,
here, right here.
because again,
It's
I
between
don't,
the 2
you're
green
right,
spaces
you're right,
that you
under this
showed us.
proposal, it would be right there. But I don't know where that plan, or where that entrance is going to end up being. If the city is interested in a position where the parking only comes back a certain distance, let us know what that is. But as I sit here up here today, without plans on our end to say this is exactly where we would need the parking to turn in, I can't specifically, say what would or would not be acceptable.
So in essence, this is a fictitious building. This is
Well-
not even, help me understand, what is the purpose of you being here?
The purpose of me being here is basically to protect my clients' rights to have access to the rear of their property.
But
which they
according to this
currently
building,
have.
there is no rear to your property.
Yeah. No,
Over parking.
the rear area of my client's property, they currently have access to. And
Why are we talking about a building that in essence doesn't even exist, nor will
Well,
probably
because-
not exist?
so So I think you're raising a very important point, and I want to get to why I think this is actually something that is good for the city. Because I think, let me take your question, let me make it a harder question for me, and then let me see if I can address it. I think the harder question is, since you don't have current plans to build a building, why is it in the city's interest, and why should the city agree to a proposal? I think that's a nub of what you're getting at. Do I have that right?
I'm listening.
Okay, so I think, well, it's my understanding, for the building of the Park Pavilion and the renovations to the park, there is going to need to be a significant staging area that would be needed by contractors for the building of that. Now, if we had come forward with building plans today or 6 months ago, and we were ready to break ground, it would be impossible for the city to use our lot as a staging area for the building of the pavilion and the renovations of the park. As is,
Are there any plans at this point in time for them to come in front of us a month, 2 months, 3 months from now with something specific in reference to a building going in that spot? Yes or no?
I think it's a good thing that there is none, and this is why.
So
Because
you're
if
standing
there
up in front
was-
of me, you're
Yep.
standing up in front of us, showing us something that doesn't exist, with the understanding that there's a maybe of a possible, nothing.
Mr. Alderman, what we're trying to protect, what my clients need to protect, is their ability to build on that property. And what they're willing to litigate about is the ability to build on that property.
It's my understanding that we're not, please tell me if I'm wrong, that we're not doing anything with that property.
Oh, I believe that the plans for lot 16 and 17 are to remove the parking and the alley and to instead put a 10-foot setback down that alley.
You're wrong, no.
No.
The park plan has that alley in there.
It's my understanding that, and
Park plan has that alley in there and always has. We're not touching lot 16.
Your understanding is wrong.
well, first of all, it definitely has the parking being removed, for sure.
Absolutely.
Correct. All right, and would there be enough for two-way traffic coming down lot 16 and coming back on lot 16?
There will be no change from what you have right now on lot 16. None. Zero.
I'd like to hear what else he's got to say.
Yeah, I think,
All right.
yeah, and
Kevin?
I'm sorry.
and
Really, no,
respectfully,
Kevin, very good
everybody,
very good
let's
points,
make
but I
sure
would like
we,
to hear the rest of the
Alderman,
presentation.
respectfully, I think we need to turn the temperature down a little bit, and let's just try to focus on the facts.
Okay.
I also think we need to give you the opportunity to respond.
Thank you.
And do you want to make a comment, or would you like to move on to another question? I have another alderman that has a question.
I want to make sure that I address all of the alderman's questions. I was trying to finish a point
Okay.
specifically
Let's
related
finish-
to
let's
the
finish that.
staging, and I wanted to finish the point that I was. okay.
Sounds good.
So,
Sounds good.
So it's my understanding, like downtown space to, give an entire lot over for the staging of a city construction site is certainly a valuable thing that my clients are willing to put on the table so that the pavilion can be built. We would certainly prefer if it was built on the other side, but I understand that that proposal is not something that the council's considering at this time. But we're prepared to offer our lot as a staging area, and we're offering to give that to the city. That's a valuable thing that we're putting on the table as part of this offer of compromise. And so if and one of the reasons why we're not pushing forward immediately with building plans is because you couldn't be pushing forward with building plans right now today and offer to hold back on those building plans while our lot was used as a staging area for months indefinitely while the building of the pavilion was taking place. Does that make sense?
Listening.
Okay. All right, there was another question.
Alderman
over here.
Mulder?
So I was merely going to point out that where you do have the parking indicated here is where the alley is.
Yeah.
And a turn-in could be accomplished by having the turn-in part be on the property that is already owned by the developer. It wouldn't have to be city property that was donated for a turn-in area, because it could just be the building being set back further. I
So-
realize economically that isn't probably very
So-
attractive,
so,
but it's
but-
possible.
And I think that goes to a comment that was raised before I stood up here today. We are not asking for that land, that turn-in area, to be a donation to the city. There was a suggestion that that parking areas would be somehow specific to tenant parking or somehow would be in any way owned by my clients. That is not a proposal that we're suggesting. We are not asking for that land to be in any way donated. That parking would be there for people that were visiting the park. All right, that's public parking that would be used by members of the park, and my clients are not suggesting that that land be in any way donated or given to them.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
You mentioned that you believe it would be unsafe to take the parking out of the building onto North Lake Drive, and that it would be safer in the other area, but yet, when you're coming out of the area that you're proposing, you're still crossing over that sidewalk area that a lot of people are walking in. To me, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
That's an excellent point, and I asked that question of the architect when I spoke with him earlier today. I said, wait a minute, why is a curb cut and cars coming in and out of a building on Main Street, why is that somehow safer than a crosswalk coming across Lake and going parallel to Main Street? Why is that somehow safer? And the way it was explained to me, and I'm not an architect, but the way it was explained to me is when pedestrians come to a crosswalk and cars come to a crosswalk, they're in the habit of looking both ways. And same thing with cars. They come to a stop, they expect to stop there, and they expect to give way to each other. However, when a pedestrian's walking down a street, a sidewalk, they're not expecting a car to come out of a building, and that's why cars coming out of buildings are inherently more dangerous than cars coming to a stop at a crosswalk. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. However, if it would be deemed safe by like our police department or whatever, that traffic would be okay coming out onto North Lake Road, is that something that potentially your clients could live with?
It's not a question of deemed safe, it's a question of, obviously, we don't want to use up that Main Street side to have several curb cuts coming in and out of the building. It's the front of your building, you don't want that to be a high-traffic area. But also, even if somebody gave it the blessing of it's deemed safe, it's still not the way that you want to facilitate pedestrian traffic in front of your building where you've got cars crossing the sidewalk.
Okay, I understand. I'm not sure that we agree on that, but I understand what you're saying. So, but moving on, with the proposed shrinking of the Village Green, I personally don't think, as you've proposed it, that it would be large enough for our German Christmas market. Do you have any say on that? Is there anyone here in the room that could speak to that? What are your thoughts on that?
While we're waiting for whatever they're discussing, Karen, I did hear, and I forgot who I heard it from, that the German Christmas market said that they could put the tent over our structure. I don't know how true that is, if Bob could speak to that.
Is Sarah here?
Just
Sarah's
that's
here.
What I heard through the rumor mill.
Way too big.
No?
Let's stay focused back on Karen's
Well, I mean,
question.
her question was on the German Christmas market.
Right.
So I was helping answer that.
So I missed that while it sounded like you had a question that, okay. So our proposal suggests 68 feet. I believe that there's certain areas that I don't think that my clients will draw more of a hard line to. If there is something slightly less than 68 feet, but not significantly less, that's a proposal that my clients would be open to having a discussion about. But in addition, it's my understanding that there's the large tent that I saw, that's what we're talking about, is enough space for that tent. Can that tent go over the pavilion?
Bob's shaking his
Well,
head no.
if we want to answer this question, there needs to be somebody in this room that can answer it, and I hate to pick on Sarah Ninman, but she's
actually,
here, Jason.
Jason, do you mind
Okay.
coming up? Just for the audience,
I'll try to help with a.
can you identify
with a couple
yourself, Jason,
graphics
please?
That might be able to, blend some of your thoughts here.
This is Jason Herzog, Director of Public Works.
Well, here's their property. And I'll try to go right to the German after a security alert. We had plenty of those today.
Yeah, hopefully no more.
Well, here's our structure, the way it's laid. Here's that access road that he was referencing. We are trying to maintain one. So that's always been in our plan. That's always been shared with the council. That's always been shared there. It's about similar width to what we've had in the past. Here's the structure that we have, and here's the actual size tents. This is the project that we've been working on for like 9 months with this thought in mind. What they're proposing is to shift this down. I forget the net result, but this is where it lays out. If we were to maintain the same structure with this same German Christmas market and the tents on there. So, I mean, you can play around with the polygons and the tent sizes. This is about where it's landing. So just to give you that reference. Does that help at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Mayor.
Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Well, now that we're all asking questions, might as well.
Are your questions for me or for?
For you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks for coming, Mr. Newbold.
Thank you.
A couple of things you mentioned. One was the cars entering in front.
Yep.
We've got several projects in downtown, including Park on Lac La Belle that enters the cars right in front. There are entrances directly in front to a small municipal parking lot and also the car entrance underground for the Eagles Landing. Right down here,
Yep.
right past downtown. So I don't think that that's a big deal. One of the things you've mentioned, and you talked about it early on, and I think Mark was trying to get to this point, was as part of your letters, you said you guys need to keep access to this back parking area because it was a historical back parking area, except in the last two plans presented, the first plan we approved, the second plan that almost got approved, that building was going to be built right on top of the lake, right next to the lake. There was never any plans for parking back there. There was never any plans to use that access. So why now is that such a big deal?
I believe that correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that there was access coming in right here, coming down this alley.
So then you're either not explaining it correctly. There is no need to have access behind the buildings along the lake.
Well, I
You
believe
don't
there
plan
would
to
be
have
for
parking back there.
construction. There certainly would be.
So that gets me to another point, which is basically you said, we can't do this project because you guys need to stage for your project someday that hasn't been proposed, right? And if we build a pavilion, you can't stage there.
We would not be able to access the rear of our lot during construction if there was a pavilion right up against our lot. That's correct.
We just showed you the other slide, though, that shows that there's still an access
Yeah,
road there.
and maybe I'm misreading that, but I see that as first of all, there's no road there. It is it's a kind of a gap in between our property line and the pavilion of about 10 feet. And that's not enough to get vehicles down and under the apparent drawings, and there's certainly no road that's on those drawings that would allow for two-way traffic to turn into and out of an interior lot in our building.
Well, right now, you don't have a building there, and you have no interior lot, right?
That is correct. There is no interior lot on a building that doesn't exist on our lot.
And
currently.
you guys are coming here today and telling us to change the entire set of plans we've been working on for 9 months with no actual plan, right? I mean, you don't actually have a plan tonight. You're not proposing anything.
We are not proposing
Okay.
a plan that would involve our building.
And part of what you are also asking is that we maintain a public parking lot that's our property for your building's use that doesn't exist, right?
No, what we were asking for is for not a public parking lot. I would say it's public parking off of an alleyway that currently exists. And that parking is Our suggestion is it's in the city's interest. It's it's admittedly in our client's interest as well, but it would be in the interest of people that wanted to use the park.
Well, I don't agree that it's in the city's interests.
Understood.
It's maybe in your client's interest. I don't agree that it's in the city's interests. You started, though, the conversation with something really interesting, which is saying that the paper was wrong, saying that you threatened litigation. So you started out the conversation, the presentation today, with what I believe is incorrect. Your letter on February 27 says, Rockwell will have several legal claims if the city proceeds with its current park plans. February 13th letter, and I'm going to read some of these because I want the record to be really correct here. We're only here looking at this again and listening to you and listening to Rockwell because you have, in fact, threatened litigation. If the Common Council is unwilling, we will put the city on notice of Rockwell's various legal claims against the city if the city proceeds with the plans. The roadmap will be costly and challenging legal issues which will need to be resolved. Rockwell will have no choice but to commence litigation against the city. Does that sound like threatening litigation to you?
And I think what was important is in our second letter, and why I'm here tonight, is to talk about a compromise that avoids litigation. One of the earlier questions that I was asked, and it was a perfectly fair question, was, is there, room to negotiate on the distance that we're talking about? And I took a moment to step back and talk about.
But you're asking us to negotiate on a parking lot that we own. That's owned by the city residents.
You are absolutely right. It is owned by the city, and it is the off-street parking that we've got, and we've got an existing statute.
But now, it's not your off-street parking. That's everyone's off-street parking.
You're
That's not owned by Rockwell. That's not owned by anyone else. That's owned by the city residents.
And the access to that off-street parking, based upon the Wisconsin statute, we have an ability and a right to object to the removal of that access to off-street parking.
We
And that's-
just told you we're not removing the access. But the last conclusion in the February 13th letter was, however, if the city is unwilling, Rockwell will enforce its right to the fullest extent permitted by law. That's what you put in the letter. So if we don't do what you guys want to do tonight, what is your next step?
we do have a draft complaint prepared.
Oh, okay. So you started out the conversation by telling us the paper was wrong, we didn't threaten litigation, yet here you are threatening litigation.
And I
So
think
I want you to be, not to be disingenuous with us. Don't come in and tell us you're not going to threaten litigation, that the paper had it wrong, and then sit here and threaten litigation. Then you tell me you have a draft complaint ready because you're not going to get your way?
No. I think what's important is the reason I am here tonight. Look, if somebody was just interested in pursuing litigation, then they wouldn't come in with an offer to compromise.
Not true. You can offer to compromise while doing all of those things, and you know that.
But why I am here tonight, and the message that I'm trying to convey, is we are interested in compromising. We are interested in avoiding litigation.
Yeah, Mr. Newbold, here's my problem. We voted down we voted one project, and the developer didn't sign the developer's agreement because they didn't do their due diligence. We then had a second proposal that failed narrowly. Since then, over a year ago, and I know this isn't all your problem, nothing has been proposed. We went through almost 9 months of public meetings on the park plans, ideas, concepts, news articles, meetings here, and then on the 11th and a half hour, we get letters threatening litigation, revised park plans that look like they were done on a high school drafting table, frankly, that gives us nothing to do, but if we don't do what you do, you are going to sue us. So there's nothing for us to do tonight.
So I respectfully disagree.
Of course you do. Yeah, I get it.
That there is something that can be done, and that is take a look at our concerns. Because I think some of our, for instance, let me give you an example. One of our concerns is the direction that the bathroom doors and the bathroom venting would face. We would like to eventually potentially put in outdoor dining in our, on our.
But it says no retail.
Yeah, so let me get to that.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But one of the, like any developer, hold on, let me
Yeah.
just clear the air on this.
Let's all keep our temperature
Okay,
down.
let me clear the air on this. Every developer wants to keep as many options open for them as possible. All right, they don't want the government telling them what they can and can't do. They want to have as many options open. My clients are not foreclosing retail. They're not saying that they have to have retail. They're not saying they don't want to have retail, okay? One of the proposals that my clients are considering is the potential for an outdoor dining area. Whether there's outdoor dining there or whether it's a residence there, nobody wants a public restroom where the doors open towards their residence or towards an outdoor dining area. That makes sense.
That makes sense, but
Okay, and I
instead of,
don't-
instead of seeing the pavilion, they're gonna see a parking lot? They prefer to see the parking lot?
I think that.
I mean, in the plans right now, it says parking
I
lot.
think that people don't mind having, it's not a parking lot, it's one row of parking. All right?
Okay, well, it's I mean, it's
I
an
wouldn't-
alleyway
I
and a
think it's an
parking lot.
exaggeration to call it a
I mean, let's
parking lot.
not, let's,
Okay,
don't
it's
quibble
one row-
about, just don't quibble about whatever I'm calling it. That doesn't make
Okay,
any sense
all
for
right,
you.
but what it is, it's one row of parking, a street that they can, a public way that they can then cross towards a park, all right? And then what you've got is you've got a pavilion that's gonna have public restrooms in it. And one of the things that we're asking for is that the public restrooms have doors that don't open towards my client's property. Nobody's objected to that tonight. Nobody said, oh, we need to have the public restrooms facing towards your client's property. I think that that's, for example, one area where we could reach an agreement on. Now, there are other areas where there may continue to be disputes. I understand that you feel like you're being sandbagged at the 11th hour. I wasn't retained by my clients until
I understand.
several weeks ago.
And I said that's not on you.
And you're
I
absolutely
understand
right. And I wasn't around in 2002, or 2022 and 2023. So I can't speak to what proposals were or were not submitted then, and I frankly, I don't have the history of it. But one thing that I think, one message I am trying to convey is, while yes, we have a draft complaint prepared. That's
Alden.
not why I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight to discuss what my client's concerns are and if there are ways to reach a compromise to those concerns.
So
No,
one
we-
other
and we
comment I want to make.
appreciate that. I'm going to shift over. Do you
Can I
have to
just make one last
finish?
comment?
Okay.
It's not really a question, but one of the things you said is, your client wants to keep their options open.
Yes.
Just so we're clear, they had an approved building once. They almost had an approved building, and nothing has been proposed for over a year since that last
Yes.
failure. They can actually build, right now, a 3 to 4 story building within the proper setbacks without any approval from the city whatsoever. They have every right to build whatever they want within the current specs. I would even argue, and I'm just one alderman, but if they came back and asked for a few movements of some zoning or a few little changes, we'd give it to them. But they can build right now. Nothing is preventing them from building, so they have every right to do whatever they want on their property right now.
But isn't it a good thing that they haven't? Because one of the things you guys need is a staging area.
No, we don't need a
We can
staging area in
survive
your
without
property.
it.
Okay.
Alderman Mulder, I just want to get a couple other comments in, and thank you all for your patience.
Yeah, I believe that we've already considered how to build the park within our
Okay.
existing space, but that's not my job. So two things. I guess when I kind of saw the drawings come through, it signaled to me two things. First of all, the rock quarry we have there now, where it was brought back to grade, and I hear about from my constituents on a weekly basis as they laugh about the moonscape or whatever else you've left us with, a pile of gravel in our downtown. And then the complete disregard for what is the most meaningful part of our city's festivities, the German Christmas market, to just plop down the pavilion clearly in the middle, as Jason showed. It just shows that there's no regard for working with the city whatsoever. We're gonna leave an ugly hole in your city, and then we're gonna disregard what we know is the number one priority. The reason we're redoing the park is to make sure that we can have our German Christmas market, as it grows, remain downtown. And someone said a high school drafting here, like, it was just done to have an exhibit. It wasn't done with any thought whatsoever, or concern for the community, or concern for what we're gonna think, as if we're just gonna somehow think, oh yeah, just put that there and we'll shrink the tent. So, I mean, the whole thing is, it just a complete disregard for us as a body and for a city, to stay here and say you're going to compromise with us by allowing us to build a pavilion using the gravel pit that you've left for us for 2 years. So I know this is none of your doing, but this is what I hear from my constituents, is they're sick of that, And I know nothing's gonna be done about it, because why would you? You don't care. But then to put one more thing out there, where now we're just supposed to kind of let this project go forward and the community be damned, is what this signifies to me. So you don't have to respond to it. There's
So,
nothing to really respond to.
all right, so that's a comment that involved some statements about, one, the quick drafting that was done in this case. And I'll admit, the time in between our first letter and our second letter was a pretty tight window. And yes, this was prepared. This wasn't prepared as if you had, sent something off to architects and given them, 3 to 4 months. It was prepared to give a demonstrative so that we could have something to discuss tonight. So while I understand that your point that, you feel that this doesn't have a high level of architectural heft that went into it, it was done under a tight time frame, and it was not meant in any way. It was not meant in any way to be disrespectful to this council or to the city. It was meant to provide a demonstrative aid. And it was not, this isn't about thumbing our nose. I'm here facing a grilling for a reason. It's because we respect the city and we're trying to reach a resolution that takes our clients' considerations into account and also works with the desires of the city. Regarding the tent, I obviously hadn't seen that overlay that Jason presented earlier. And what I would like to see is it look like that was the existing location of the tent. It looked like there was an ability for the tent to be moved a certain distance, and then also for the pavilion to be moved back a certain distance. And what I would like to see is, and I think what my clients would like to see, is some effort to try to reach a compromise that avoids, I'm a litigator, so I don't mind being in court, but I understand the challenges for a municipality and for developers to be in court, that avoids that process. If that's the only way to do that, is to proceed with litigation, then I don't want to do that, though. But that's why that's the directive that I'm here with my clients, is to try to work out and to try to see, okay, and as Jason said, let's move you could move the hexagons around to see if there's a way to make it work. And what I would like to see is an effort to try to see if those considerations can be taken into account.
We would definitely appreciate you coming and sharing your views. I have a couple more aldermen that have some questions.
Yes.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Yeah, a lot of the comments I'm hearing, it's like I'm living in an alternate reality compared to what's actually been happening for the last at least year. You respect the city, but you leave a gaping hole that looks like a bombed out crater that has a bunker around it with lines that say, "Do not come here, stay off." You randomly put up some political signs. I guess, they make the cut for beautifying the city. You're concerned about parking for your building, but you've left it in a destroyed state for, I don't even know how long it's been. Like I said, I think it's been closer to 2 years than 1 year. You want to stop progress of the city the second we start making plans, even though you've had 2 years to address this. If you wanted to negotiate or have some sort of agreement or progress with the city, why didn't anything come forward earlier? We've been having our hand out since then. You talk about you don't know the history of it. I think we've talked about the history of it a little bit, but let me just kind of brush it up for you. Your client got everything they wanted. They got every TIF dollar they wanted. They got every height exemption they wanted. They got every setback that they asked for. They literally got every single thing they asked for, and it took a year to get there. They were given a demolish order to raise the structure, again, because they asked for it, to help with the TIF, to make it as productive for them as they could. And what did they do? How did they treat the city? They tore up the agreement. They refused to sign it. They said it's going to cost more than we originally anticipated. Then they come back with another half-baked plan that also doesn't have any hard numbers attached to it, asking for TIF money with less benefit to the taxpayers. Mind you, these are the same costs they've been working on for years, that the costs that they got into trouble with to begin with when the first TIF was rejected. So we never told them they couldn't build their second building. We just told them we're not going to give them taxpayer money to do it. And it's really interesting. You say that they they're like anybody else. They don't want the government to tell them what they can or can't do. And I just wanted to add, there should be like an addendum to that. They just want the city government to hand them money, taxpayer money specifically. That's pretty odd. So then we get the second TIF, and like I said, it wasn't the building we rejected, it was the exorbitant TIF money that we rejected. That's what was turned down. It was never any sort of building. And so then what do? They always talked about how they wanted to contribute to the downtown to make it a beautiful, thriving location. So they leave us with the bunkers instead. We ask if we can plant grass, if we can take liability outsourced to allow people to at least not leave it in this destructive state while we move forward. Nope. They want to put as much pressure, as much as they can to make as distasteful as possible for the rest of the community, so that we'll hand them over the taxpayer dollars. So then we come forward with a plan, like I said, about 9 months ago, at least, for the village green, for the new green. Not a crickets. There's nothing. There's no words. There's no sort of engagement until like 2 weeks before we're going to vote on it. And now there's an issue. Now you want to compromise. You want to come to an agreement. It's just so, man, I'll tell you, I warned about the distastefulness of the development group during the TIF debates, because we could look to Fowler Lake Village as some of the examples of the litigation your client engages with concerning the city. I pointed it out, and your presence here tonight, I think, brings that full circle. And here we are again. Thank you.
So
Yeah, if
Can I
you'd like to respond, it's fine.
I don't
or-
have any questions, so I've heard you talk enough, to be honest, but yeah, if you
No, but
if
he
you have
has,
more
he
to
has a
say.
right to respond if he
Yeah,
wants.
no, go ahead.
Because I think that, yeah, you're absolutely right.
You don't know the history, so
Well,
I don't.
hold on. I think that you've leveled a lot of criticisms on my client that seem to be very related to events that took place in 2022 and 2023. I did not represent my clients back then, but I would encourage you and the rest of the council, as you decide what to do, not to just to judge this issue and what the right way to deal with this issue is that's before you.
Right, well, they've shown themselves pretty clearly of who they are.
well-
So I would say it does matter.
Okay, and I would just encourage you guys to just look at what's in the best interest of the city and looking at all of the issues that are before the council, and not to go back and try to rehash or re-argue issues that frankly I wasn't around for and that I can't really speak to.
No, I appreciate it. We have two more aldermen, Alderman Ellis and then Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Okay, my first question to you, I have a couple questions here. The drawing at which I'm looking at right now,
Yep,
is that to scale?
I believe it is. I believe it is. I'm not an architect, so I can't say with any certainty.
You
But
just told me you just told us just a few minutes ago that it wasn't, that it was just put together.
It's
I'm sorry,
close, Kevin. Jason just said it's close, so I think
Jason?
we can assume it's close to scale.
Okay.
I'm sorry, if I said earlier that it was not to scale, then I misspoke. I believe that it is to scale, but I mean, I couldn't testify as an expert to that, but I believe that it is.
As far as the alleyway is concerned, it's 18 feet, not 10 feet.
You're talking about under the park's new plans, is that correct?
It's 18 feet.
Okay.
Okay. My concern with this whole issue at this point is, no disrespect to you, understand that, and do not take this personally.
It's okay.
You're not prepared. At the end of the day.
In what way?
At the end of,
Okay.
at
Sorry,
the end
go
of the
ahead.
day, you're not up to speed on what has happened over the last 2 years. So while we're talking, we're bringing you up to speed instead of you saying, this is where we were, and this is where we would like to be. You're giving us a design that doesn't exist. This building, as you just stated, does not exist. There are no drawings at this point in time that have been given to planning, that have been given to Jason, that has been given to anybody. You're here, my own assumption is you're here to stop us from putting the pavilion where we want the pavilion to be, period. And so you put a building over here, whatever it looks like, at the end of the day, probably not going to be that way. And 2 or 3 months or 5 months from now, that building, nor are we going to have any plans from the builder for anything. Your sole purpose here is to stop us from building the pavilion. My problem is, once again, you're a litigator. You're not prepared. You can't answer our questions because you don't have the history.
I think what he's trying to do is he's focusing on what their proposal is and what their
But
position.
there's no proposal.
No, what they're doing is a layout, a concept plan that is very,
We
very
have seen
broad.
enough concept plans, and
Okay.
just as Chaz just stated, all due respect, Mayor, just as Chaz just stated, we gave them, and Matt stated it, we gave them everything, even to the point where we didn't want to, we gave. And in return, here we are.
Correct. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with the history. I think what the presentation, and correct me if I'm wrong, is here's a possible direction that they could go, but to do that, this is what they're asking for, or
But
this
what
is what they
direction?
need.
Please.
And
I'm
if,
a little slow.
if we move forward.
What direction?
Kevin, if.
Mayor.
Yes, just let me finish. What they're trying to do is they're trying to put this forward because they've also have proposed litigation. And so what they're trying to do is say, hey, can we do something together? That's all they're saying. This litigator is saying, here's where I am in this point in time. This is what we have. What do you want to do? And he's trying to give us the information. And I think we should respect that he's trying to give us the information. All of the comments about the history, I don't have a problem with any of the comments, and it's good that the public fully understands. But where we are is, we are here today. We have put 9+ months in, a lot of money, invested a lot of money into a plan that's been very public and had had tremendous public input. And right now, we're in a position, we have an RFP, we have a timeline, and we have to decide at another date whether we're going to continue to move forward with that or whether we're going to put a pause on it. And so these folks are coming in and saying, hey, we're your neighbor, here's what we think. And that's what we're trying to do, is understand where they think. Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Just a couple things, and some of what I wanted to say has kind of gotten long past what other people have said. I will say that when it comes to the bathrooms, I was one of the aldermen that a few times said, are the bathrooms facing whatever may or may not be to the north going to be a problem? That fell on deaf ears. I would come alongside you that we do need to change that. I'm also probably while I don't love the rocks, I am probably one of the few aldermen that disagrees with putting grass there. Because if we put grass there and that property sits for several years, our residents are going to start to think it's a continuation of Village Green. Then when they do come and develop or sell or someone else builds, then it's going to be, oh, they're taking away Village Green. I don't want that. So I do appreciate that I don't like the rocks, but I do appreciate that it's not usable. I always say this to my kids. There's 3 sides to every story: his, hers, and the truth. I heard a lot of things tonight from some of the aldermen that is not how I remember it. That wasn't the history of it. There's so many more moving pieces to this and parts to it. And I just wanted to say that because they're not, while I don't agree with everything from Rockwell, they're definitely not the villain in this. The last thing I will say, the political sign that is on their property is a very well-respected, very qualified judge that used that spot because of her connection for really great visibility, and I just want to make sure we're not disrespectful to her.
No, thank you for that. Any other?
You to respond to me. This is going
yeah,
on too
no.
long.
Any other comments from council? Any other questions with regard to the post? I just have a question. Is this going to be a 2-story, 3-story, 4-story, 5-story building? Has that been discussed or?
Let me address your question and Alderman Ellis's point.
Address hers first, please.
Okay.
I said he doesn't have to. You really don't.
Said he would like to.
No.
so-
Oh, okay.
What I'd like to do is say you're right about one thing and you were wrong about some other things. You're right that I do not have intimate knowledge of what happened in 2022 and 2023. And you are educating me on that as I'm up here. But there's a reason why I think it's a good thing that I'm not aware of that stuff, because what we're asking you to do is not to think about 2022 and 2023. That's to not look at the merits of the actual issue that's before you guys, and instead judge people on stuff that's happened in the past. And there's a lot of water under the bridge on that, and I think that my clients would have different views than the views that were expressed up here about what happened back then.
Well, let's hear it then.
But we're not here to discuss that, because that's not going to address the actual issue that's in front of you guys. Because the issue that's in front of you guys is not a proposal about building a building on my client's property. Admittedly, we don't have a proposal for you guys to build something on our property today. And I clearly have the wrong information about staging, but the proposal that we had would have involved staging, and that was for you guys. And so that was one of the reasons that we took into consideration not coming in with building plans today. What we're asking you to do is to see if there is room to compromise on the location of the building, because the one thing you were wrong about is we're here to stop the building of the pavilion. That is not the direction for my clients, and that is not what I have asked for in my letter or what I came up here and said at any point. We are not asking for that. We are asking for for you guys to consider our clients' rights and desires, and to see if there is a way to locate that pavilion that makes sense, that takes these considerations into account. Unless there's any other
So,
questions.
Quick questions. Do we know the height of the building?
No, I have zero plans to present about the height of any building that would be on my client's
And
lot
is the
today.
potential building looking for TIF funding, or do we know that? Are they just planning to build a building and?
I am not aware of any plans for building a building on my client's lot that I'm prepared to present today, and I'm not prepared to disclose what the funding situation would be for
that's fine.
any development that would be on my client's lot.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
I have to say, and I would not be surprised if everybody on the council agrees with me, but I think we were a little bit misled in how this came across on our agenda, because it says presentation of potential Rockwell Partners development.
Yeah,
And
I was
now
surprised to
all
see
we're
it.
doing is talking about this parking issue.
Yeah.
And I think we all came in here wanting to hear
Yeah,
something.
it's fair.
And we're not. We're not hearing
Yeah.
whether it's a 2, 3, 4-story building. We're not hearing if they want TIF. We're not hearing if they want to come to the table and talk with us again.
Yep.
Just,
Yeah,
Just
I
saying,
was surprised when I saw
you
that.
know.
I don't know how that agenda item, because I think what might have happened is that there was kind of a difference in timing of when we sent our proposal and when that agenda item was placed on the agenda. I don't fault whoever put it on there, but I totally understand your point. When I saw that agenda item, I thought, oh, they didn't quite get it, because I think what you guys were expecting was a proposal that would have involved a bunch of TIF funding and the building of a building and all kinds of stuff like that. And what my clients are looking for is not anything that would require any TIF funding from you guys for the building of any building. We're not asking for any money. We're not asking for any property. We're not asking for anything like that. We're asking for our rights to be considered and for you guys to see if there's room to compromise.
Mr.
So
Newble.
you just, what?
Did I misspeak?
Well, I just want to make sure, because one of the things we try to do is be very careful from a funding standpoint.
Yep.
And you just said there's no TIF funding,
We're not asking for any TIF funding for
Today.
moving your for today.
or ever?
No, I'm not going to say ever.
Okay, okay.
For,
I
if-
just was
I have no, again, I am not presenting a proposal for a building structure and how it would or would not be
Fully
funded.
understand. It came across differently.
yes.
And I wanted to make sure on the record
Yes.
that we knew your position.
Yes.
Alderman Rozak.
If we, let's say there's a vote hypothetically in the next 2 weeks to move forward the plans as proposed, as discussed for the last 9 months, your draft complaint, I presume, has a temporary restraining order as part of it?
That's attorney work product. I'm not
Okay.
going to tell you what it does.
But you just told us you weren't going to try to prevent us from building the pavilion, but the only way to protect your rights is to prevent us from moving forward with building the pavilion and the park as planned, right?
In the location where you are planning to build it, we believe would be a violation of my client's rights.
So the purpose here, unlike what, I want you to be clear. Your purpose is to prevent us from building the pavilion on our parking lot.
It's, our purpose here is to convince you guys to move the location of the pavilion from where you guys had originally proposed it to be.
And the proper next step then is if we don't do what you're asking to do, you've already told us you have a draft complaint ready, and part of that will likely include a demand that a court prevent us or enjoin us from moving forward the plans as we have been presenting them. So, I mean, let's just be frank about what we're doing here. Don't tell us you're not going to litigate and then say you have a draft complaint. I bristle at that. Don't tell us you're not here to stop the pavilion, but certainly if we move forward the plans as presented, that will be part of Rockwell's request. And as a partner, if they really are truly a neighbor, I don't know why they haven't done something more with this site or something more with us over the last 12 months. I struggle with this part of it, and this isn't for you to respond to, Mr. Nebold. This is just my general comments for the public. We have, and I've been on a lot of these emails, we've reached out to the Rockwell partners for months and months and months. What do you want to do? Where can we help? I've seen emails from the mayor. I've seen emails from Duffy. You aren't on any of those, so you don't have to worry about it. But then we get the threat of the lawsuit and the prevention of the park plans in the 11th hour. I don't know what more you want us to do. You want us to maintain a parking and access for a building that doesn't exist, for plans that don't exist, for, parking in the back that has never been asked for. It's a very strange, bizarre request here today in my eyes. And I appreciate you coming in and answering the questions. It's always tough to be in front of 8, 9, 10 people asking you questions. It's kind of like being in front of an appellate court a little bit. Maybe we're a little better than an appellate court, but maybe a little less,
They've only
maybe a
got
little
3.
less restrained. Maybe a little less restrained.
I appreciate that, Mr. Alderman. I never said we had never threatened litigation. I said the thrust of what we were trying to convey was that we were interested in compromising litigation.
Right, but
and
I
avoiding
think
I
that,
understand that,
I
but
think that point's come across
Okay, but
really
the-
well.
I don't know,
I
I
don't think we
disagree. I
need to
don't think it
continue to
has.
discuss that.
I don't think it has. I think the compromise is do what we want you to do. Here's the plans. If you don't do it and you go forward with the park, it's
No,
going to be litigated. so.
To be clear, what we wanted is something that I haven't even asked for tonight. What we wanted was for the pavilion to be built on this side of the property. That was what we wanted. That
You
was,
have no control over that.
I agree with you. That's why we have not pushed for it. That's what, you said you're trying to just demand what you want. What we wanted was for it to be built on the other side of the property. That's not something I've asked for tonight. That's not something I've pushed for
Well, of course,
tonight.
because that would be ludicrous and absurd, because you can't tell us where to put the pavilion in the park.
Your point is that we were just demanding that we get what we want. That's not what.
That's the way I see it, and I think that's the way the general public is going to see it after 9 months of working on this plan. We're faced with essentially a draft complaint and leave us a parking lot for a future building that we may never build, or else. And that's the way I see
So
it. That's the way the
let's
letter
kind of
reads.
maybe come to a closure on this.
Yeah.
I think we're hitting a lot of the same points. Alderman, is there any last comment anybody wants to make? And if not, I just would like to thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do you have any final comment or any of your colleagues?
again, I mean, I can read the room. I know that there's a lot of wind blowing in my face. But I would ask that you guys take a moment and think, okay, let's see if there's room. Yes, you're facing a litigator, and yes, you guys are throwing a lot of history at him about why you don't like my clients. Fine. Put that to the side and see if there's room to compromise on some of these issues and see if we can enter into some sort of negotiation to reach a resolution that doesn't involve just pointing fingers and hating people for stuff that's happened years ago.
Sir, wait. I'm going to have to stop you on that. That's
Sorry.
very unfair.
I apologize.
This building, we would all like to have happen. You look at the Lavinia building, which is spectacular that they're building right now. If they build something there, I know they'll do a wonderful job. We just have to have something that works for the city residents at low risk and for the developers, so it's good for them. So to say that we're nasty and all of that and we don't want to work with these, that actually really pisses me off.
I apologize. I
So
sincerely-
don't do that again, and you may be
sincerely apologize.
excused.
I sincerely apologize.
You may be excused.
That was not my intent.
On to the flat camera update. Chief Pfister.
He's like, I'm not having you guys, I'm sending Captain Tim.
Sending up the captain instead.
I hope you have some good news for us.
I'm going to simmer this down just a little bit here. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to give you an update on Flock. And more importantly, thank you, Council, for allowing us to purchase the Flock cameras. They've been a great asset for our department in the last year. Got a short presentation for you. Will be short, and I will take any questions or comments following that.
You said short twice.
Uh-huh.
I heard 3 times.
It's been a very long day. All right, just want to talk about Flock. Again, legitimate law enforcement agencies use Flock safety cameras to capture license plates and vehicle characteristics for the purpose of solving and reducing property and violent crimes. Yeah, that's what I was doing. A couple quick stats, over 2,000 law enforcement agencies. That too. Yeah, that's where I want.
Nice.
All right, a couple quick stats. Over 2,000 law enforcement agencies nationwide use Flock, and currently over 100 law enforcement agencies here in Wisconsin use Flock safety. Several Lake Country area police departments also use Flock safety. They've been a great resource for us. Village of Shaniqua, Village of Heartland, Village of Pewaukee, and the city of Delafield. So again, it's a review for you guys, what is Flock and what Flock is not. Flock is license plate recognition. It gathers objective evidence and facts about vehicles, not people, alerts police of wanted vehicles, uses to solve crime, and adheres to all state laws. What Flock is not facial recognition, not used for traffic enforcement, and the data stored is beyond 30 days automatically deletes. Broke down the phases of Flock implementation into 4 phases. Phase 1 was deployment planning and approval. This was done by the council in late 2023. Again, very much appreciated. We held a public safety meeting before that to kind of get the gauge of the community. That was phase 1. We moved to phase 2, implementation, installation, and quality check. That was done early in 2024 after the approval from the council. That was kind of more of the cameras, 4 cameras being installed in the city of Oconomowoc. That was done in about January and February of 2024. Phase 3, onboarding, training, and continued partnership. We did some training in February and March of 24. 3 out of the 4 cameras became live in April of 2024. We did have a problem with one of our cameras on Highway 67. That was not put out there until August due to some issues, but we did get a prorated response back from Flock of almost half of what we paid for that one camera. And then phase 4, deployment and return to previous phases if needed. I'm going to give you 3 camera views, 3 out of our 4 cameras. This camera is on North Lake Road at Lisbon Road. This is one that goes southbound, coming in from Dodge County. Another camera here, this is going to be Highway 16 eastbound at Shorehaven. This is coming in from Jefferson County. And then another camera, this is going to be on 880 East Wisconsin, right between Lorleburgs and McDonald's. This is coming in from Lake Country and going westbound into the city. The fourth camera, which I don't have, and I apologize, is the one that's right off of on Highway 67, just north of I-94. We talked to you guys in 2023 about a policy that Chief and I put together, a very strict policy and procedure. Part of that is the annual required certifications. This is mine that we did here in March of last year, so almost a year ago. There's two phases of this. We had the officers and our police support specialists. They did the alert and search, and then our administration, which is chief, myself, our lieutenants, our sergeants, and our detectives had to do an extra one, and that was the administrator. We do that every year per our policy and procedure. Results. I'm going to give you two quick results, not to take up much of your time, but I want to kind of express these two. April 20th of last year, we had a stolen vehicle. This was a marketplace meeting of one of our residents on one of our establishments on the north end. He was hoping to sell his vehicle. Two subjects from Milwaukee came here as proposed buyers of that vehicle. Following a test drive, those subjects stole his vehicle. Quick response from the police. We were able to put a hot list out there, and we were able to solve this in 20 minutes. Heartland and Pewaukee picked up the vehicles on their flock. We were able to stop one vehicle immediately in Pewaukee. The other vehicle was a short, high-speed chase or pursuit that ended on I-94 and Highway T. All suspects were taken into custody and are facing charges on that one. One I wanted to present, it was probably, you saw it in the Enterprise last month. This is a assistance that we gave from the town of Oconomowoc and the city of Brookfield. We're two charged after $871,000 worth of computer equipment was stolen from a Lac LaBelle business. City of Brookfield detectives contacted me. They had a possibility, they had something in their jurisdiction, and it was a very similar method of operation that the town of Oconomowoc had for this LaBelle business. They thought they had a possible suspect vehicle, and at the time of this incident, we were working with our flock cameras on the one on East Wisconsin by Lorleburgs and McDonald's, and then coming out after committing this crime, coming back from Shorehaven. This was the break-in case that they needed. We were able to tie the Brookfield case and the town of Oconomowoc case together based off of our flock cameras on both ends of the city on Highway 16. One subject was arrested from Milwaukee, and another subject was arrested from Florida. Again, that was just charged early February in Waukesha County Court. So this is just two of the incidents that has helped us with flock in the last year. I know we talked in 2023 about some of the issues, and you guys kind of mentioned about audits and making sure that the officers were held accountable. We kind of expressed to you that they were going to need a reason for running a flock. So here's just an audit that I did for a particular officer. Obviously, I blacked out his name, and I blacked out some of the plates that he ran. This was a investigation he was working on, but this was just something that I've done quarterly audits for the last year, but just kind of give you a quick example. As you can see, there was needed a reason for every particular case that they run, and I'm able to audit that. Chief's able to audit that, and we have done that again quarterly.
Can I ask a quick question while we're on that? Why are, in this one, all the reasons are the same? Are there separate reason codes?
Yeah, so this was, I just picked this one, and there's obviously more, but this is a particular stolen vehicle that we were looking at, and he was just looking at particular networks within the city and outside the city for this particular case. But I just kind of want to show you an example of what we can do, because again, I needed a reason for everything that they do. Wanted to bring this up to the council. I'm just going to scroll all the way down here. So we initially signed a 2-year contract that ends at the end of 2025. Again, 4 cameras right now. Currently, we will be coming to you at budget time to hopefully get to 2 new cameras, flock cameras. We were looking at the area of Highway Z near the bypass and Valley Road. Especially, I'll go back to here, Highway Z. This is because of the north expansion. We were looking at get a camera out there. And also Valley Road near Summit Elementary and the YMCA. We've seen a vast increase of car break-ins and locker room thefts at the YMCA. So we were looking to have something in that area. So what Flock does, they do not raise the prices, but they adjust accordingly to the number of officers per department. We currently have 30 officers in our department, so we fit under the category of agencies between 25 and 50 officers, which wise we would need 6 cameras. Again, we can talk about that at budget time, but our contract does run out with Flock for the current one we have for 4 at the end of 2025. Just wanted to throw that out there right now. And with that, I will take questions, comments.
Any questions from council? Thank you for the update. I had a question. Were there any complaints at all about the cameras? I know we talked about privacy
Received
and some.
0 complaints for Flock
Zero
cameras, other
complaints,
just
okay.
from social media and comments made by citizens, but nothing that was brought in, no open records requests, anything like that.
Alderman Shellpepper.
It's interesting that, you know, now that we're adding officers, we're having to add new flock cameras. I thought the original reason we were bringing this on board was to help with some of our personnel needs. So now you're telling me it's almost the opposite. The more officers we have, the more flocks we need.
Flock changed their contract, is basically, our contract expired. Regardless, we will still be in the 25 to 50, because we haven't added that many officers. So their original contract, the way it worked, was different. This is the new way they're doing it, so this way they don't have to raise prices. When we get 6 cameras, we're gonna be set at that, so we'll fall in that range and not have to purchase any other ones.
Have we seen any sort of reduced workload associated with this? I mean, are there sort of, I mean.
Well,
'cause-
absolutely. I mean, you saw it right there. We solved the case in 20 minutes where it might have taken us 8 hours or, you know, a week to do. So there's definitely a savings on manpower.
Solved the case, though, it was in a different city, right? I mean, the camera picked up the car in a different location. Isn't that what happened? And that's how you.
Correct, but we can search those, so
Because it was a car that, it was stolen from someone who brought it on Craigslist, right?
it was stolen from Oconomowoc.
But so if someone came on a
Somebody came-
Craigslist sale, right, they were like, hey, I want to sell my car.
A resident of our city was
Right.
trying to sell their car online.
And so they knew what their license plate was already.
Correct.
Okay, so I mean, it's not like the flock in Oconomowoc really had anything to do with it all. Is that correct?
If we didn't have the Flock system, we wouldn't have been able to search the system to find out that it hit the cameras in other jurisdictions. You can't just access Flock if you don't have it.
Okay. I get what you're saying. So you're saying that was it the Dellfield or it was Heartland that picked it up somewhere else?
Heartland and Pewaukee.
So they never flagged us that there was an issue. We didn't put a search into the system and then it
We put an immediate
flagged.
hot alert. It's
And
called-
so you're saying that if we weren't enrolled in Flock and we had put an alert out on this license plate, they would have not given us mutual aid to help us on that search?
It's a possibility, because that vehicle left 16 eastbound. Again, they took actually a side road to try to avoid the freeway, and that's how it got hit there. I mean, don't know. We're gonna
Okay.
assume that it might or not, it might hit.
I could explain this a little bit different. When a vehicle's stolen, we enter it into what's called the time system, okay? The state system. That is a process that takes a while to enter it in there, okay? The state reviews it, then it goes out. So really, the only thing that's sitting out there is if an officer runs that plate because they happen to see it, then they realize it's stolen, okay? The department is notified, we can put the alert in about a minute on our end. Those cameras pick it up and bang, 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 we're alerted. It doesn't take any manpower by any other department, okay? And we're alerted. I don't know if that clears that up for you.
How many individuals are actively on our Flock search list right now? How many plates are on it?
I couldn't tell you because we don't go into it unless we have and we're searching for a specific plate. That is our rules. That is what the council also dictated for me. So I couldn't tell you how many plates are on there because we would never search that. That'd be against our policies and procedures.
So detectives are adding it to the list, and we don't really know how many they've added?
You want to know how many we have on our hot list?
Right, that's what I was asking.
I couldn't tell you. It varies at a given time. It's not that many. So.
20?
Less than 10 that are probably on there currently, but they come on, come off.
How many false alarms have we had? Have we picked up any that were?
I
shouldn't
can
have?
think of one where a plate was, the state of Wisconsin license plates are so great, that the They had peeled off, and it got one digit wrong, but we saw it hit another camera, and we figured that out. We
Okay,
didn't
so we
contact the
never
person.
actually went out there and pulled somebody over, nothing like that?
Scared them. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Any further questions? Alderman Rozak?
I did have a couple. Thank you, guys. I can't, I don't remember if I reviewed the procedures or not, probably not. What I've seen online more and more lately, and it's maybe in some conspiratorial kind of things, is significant misuse of flock. And now that it's becoming more ubiquitous, more and more departments are having it, it's just a matter of fact that there's gonna be more people that are gonna use it to track their girlfriend or whatever improperly. What does our policy say about misuse? If we find out an officer has misused it to track an ex-girlfriend or to track a boyfriend that's dating his ex-girlfriend, would we do if we find that out, if we audit it as the administrator? What is our, is that person immediately terminated or goes to the police commission? Maybe
Grounds for dismissal.
Okay, good. I appreciate that. When we approve this, I think I voted against it because I am nervous about this technology, as you guys know, and I think I presented a valid case on why we should have voted against it. But what I was hoping to see is a little bit, and maybe, I don't want to burden you guys a lot right now because I know there was a lot going on in the city, but in the next month or two, if we could get actual hard data on how many hits we've had, how many, so you had the two examples. Is there more? And I don't need like specifics. I just need, hey, we've pulled over since Flock is fully implemented and everyone's trained and ready. We've hit 5 stolen cars. We've hit, 5 sex trafficking guys that were on a hot, whatever. Something that kind of gives us like, what is it really doing? Because those two examples are great. But if that's the only 2 we have in a year and a half, then I'm like, okay, we start to have to weigh it. Now we're going to add 2 more cameras. That's going to cost another 6, 7, 8 grand. I'm a little disappointed that Flock's changing their contract on us. I think that's kind of complete nonsense, in my personal opinion. Our goal was to go with the 4 for a while and see how it working at our main intersections, and now they're saying we have to add 2 more. That irritates the heck out of me. I don't know what I'm going to do with that budget item, but I would like a little bit more data on what we're hitting, what we're getting. I think that would be, and we don't have to have another presentation either. Just send us an email or
Maybe a
memo on
Friday
it.
update, Friday update or something?
Yeah, I mean, it could be even that simple, just, we were up and running on August 2023, and, we have this many people that use it. We've entered this much data. We've tried to hit this many. We've had 15 apprehensions, 10. We've stopped XYZ, or we found 3 drug dealers. I mean, you find 2 or 3 drug dealers on it, then I'm starting to say, hey, that's pretty good. We found someone coming through that was on a federal hit list or whatever. I don't know.
When maybe the appropriate time is when we come to the budget, so that might be the right time. Alderman
Well, that's
Mulder?
October.
Yeah, I guess
That's a long ways away. So, but I appreciate you guys. Thank you for all I liked it. The examples were good.
I think this is a little bit, it's also altruistic, much like we were hearing with the center presentation before, where we're part of a statewide network that's helping the community, and we benefit sometimes particularly well when a local car is recovered. But also I'd be interested to know how many times, because we're collecting data that other people are tapping into, right? So we're part of the database. So how many, and we're kind of a little bit of a crossroads with 16 and 67. And so how often has our data been used by other departments
That's a good
to
question,
solve
yeah.
problems?
If there's a way to
Because
find that out, yeah.
if there's a way to find out, I mean, because that is part of it. We're not, it's not just us,
It's a good idea. Good idea, yeah. Alderman Shellpepper
Well,
and
that
then
was another
Alderman
one of my
Maroney.
questions was, how many times have we had requests come in from federal authorities to access our flock department
I
cameras, or
believe we
flock
have had
cameras?
0.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just speaking to Alderman Rozik's point, I would really appreciate a further delineation, accounting of what we're dealing with. And I appreciate you guys putting together the presentation you did tonight. I would have liked to have had it with the other packet materials on Friday so I could actually prepare to see what you were presenting. I don't think there was a lot necessarily there, but it certainly was less than I would have hoped, I guess. I would certainly like to see a more further accounting of what we're actually doing with these cameras. How many cars have we actually picked up on the flock cameras? Do you know in the last year, or individuals?
I don't know. And here's me coming out right now.
Yeah.
The policy restricts me from doing a lot of things in flock. A lot of things you're asking me for, I will have to change our policy to give myself authority to go in, look at this, and determine it. If this council wants to give me that authority to produce that report, we will change the policy.
Can we pull up the ordinance, and so we can see the language that we're struggling with, or not the ordinance, but the policy?
I think we can look, I don't think we have time for that tonight.
I can tell
We
you
have
right
our
now,
report.
data is held for 30 days. After that, I can't tell you what plates were there.
We're not
I
asking,
can't,
we're not
but I
asking.
can't go back to look to see what departments looked at it, and this and that. That information is erased.
But
There is no data that I can go back other than 30 days to give you.
I don't know why this has to be so controversial or so combative, Chief. We're saying we like some of the examples. However you got these examples is what we're looking for, that data. You know, we've had these many hits, or we've assisted,
I
you know.
understand that.
We pulled over five vehicles last year for Pewaukee because they put something in a hot list and we got them, and we pulled 5 over because it was that's all we're asking for. You guys have to have that data. I'm not asking for you to mine data from the flock
Okay,
system.
I'm just letting you
I think
know
what
that
would
there is a
probably-
limit to the amount of data that I can do.
What would probably be
And
be
that's part of the
helpful
system,
is to completely define what we're looking for, and then we can compare that to the policy and go from there. So I think maybe Matt or Chaz, if you can give a couple lists of what you want specifically, then we can figure out where we are. And that might be a way forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, send us what
Send
you're
it
looking
to-
for, we'll let you know what we
Yep.
can pull.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That would help. Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Alderman Maroney, sorry.
I just wanted to add, and it's been said over and over again, but we're just looking for results in a way that is possible. And we understand your limits and what you are able to present to us tonight, and I get that. And you gave some good examples. But I think, I remember going over this in the past, and we just want to see how it works for us and the area, you know, so I think that's all. Thanks.
Sounds good.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you,
very much.
everybody. Do we have any staff reports?
No, sir.
Do we have any comments from the alderman this evening? Before we go into closed
Seven-point
session.
plan that I'd like to lay out. If I could start, please.
Alderman
I think we should
Spiegelberg.
say thank you, though, to the Police Department, Western Lakes Fire District, for the amazing way that they rendered our community safe today after a very unusual circumstances.
Very well, I echo the same. Any other comments? With no additional comments from the mayor, we're going to go into closed session. I still need to read all 3 sections of the closed session before we can leave council. And then for those in the audience, we will then adjourn actually into room 3, and we will close the council meeting from room 3 as well. So per Wisconsin State Statutes, 19.851E, Wisconsin statutes deliberating and negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or the conducting of specific public businesses whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically with regard to the potential development within Old Highlander in Tax Increment District Number 7. The next public hearing is per Wisconsin State statutes. The purpose of this meeting is to confer the legal counsel who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be developed in respect to litigation in which it is likely to become involved as an authorized under Section 19.851G of the statute, specifically to discuss potential litigation involving the city, the village of Lac La Belle, and the town of Oconomowoc pertaining to annexations. The next closed session item is per Wisconsin state statutes, where we'll be deliberating and negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specific public businesses wherever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically with regard to the potential development of the Rockwell Partners project in Tax Increment District Number 8. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into closed session, identifying all 3 of these closed session items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Maroney.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas. Oh, absent, sorry. Alderman Rosick.
Aye for me. and
Alderman
Douglas.
Altman Close.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. We're going to go into closed session, and thank you for coming out